of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the Preble Town Board meeting of November 9th, 2020. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the regular minutes of October 12th?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. And we also have minutes from our last meeting, which was the public hearing. We all got a copy of those minutes. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to those minutes? And that was on November 4th.
Make a motion to accept those minutes also.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, at this time, I'd like to introduce Rich Cunningham of Toma Development. Rich, you're up. If you could explain to us what you have for us tonight.
Sure. I'm not sure where you want me.
You could stand up here by these lecturers here, the podiums.
I see you got things being taped, so.
Yeah. You can take your mask off if you want.
Okay. If I can't hear me, let me know. Do have a fact sheet for somebody on the board that you can kind of talk about and review, so you don't necessarily remember everything that I say. To give you a little bit of background, the local waterfront revitalization program is a program through the Department of State. The county got funding to do a LWRP plan back early 2000s. That was completed probably almost 10 years ago. That included 11 municipalities throughout the entire Taftna River corridor. That plan was never adopted. Every municipality had to pass local laws and do some things, and no one was ever really charged to take lead and make that happen. So it just sort of stagnated. In the interim, municipalities within that area were able to access LWRP funding for projects. Most recently, a couple of years ago, the city Cortland got $500,000 to do a pedestrian bridge. Marathon got funding a couple of times, I think, one to improve the parkland, create a car-top boat launch, and things like that. A couple of years ago, the Department of State basically said municipalities that have not adopted their LWRP will no longer be able to access those funds. So the city applied for an additional grant through the Department of State to update the previous LWRP and pay to have it adopted, to go through that process so that someone would actually shepherd it through the adoption process, which would then make participating municipalities eligible for LWRP funding. The city got that grant, and they subsequently hired Toma Development Consultants to do the planning work and to put it through the adoption process. So that's a quick background. An LWRP is basically a comprehensive land and water use plan for the river corridor. Think of it like a comprehensive plan, but kind of for the entire river corridor. Everything from water uses, looking at tourism, economic development, resource protection, all of the various issues that might impact the water front. It's unusual in a few different ways. One is it has to be reviewed and approved by the state, including most state agencies. Once it's adopted, those state agencies have to refer to that. As you may or may not know, the state isn't really required to pay attention to your local zoning or local comprehensive plan. State DOT is coming in and they want to build a big new facility for their trucks or something. They don't have to look at your zoning. They are, correct me if I'm wrong, Don, but my understanding is
Doing fine, right?
So the LWRP does help guide state actions. So once this is adopted, a state agency taking actions need to look at the adopted LWRP and make sure that their actions are consistent with that LWRP. So that's a good benefit. It allows a local community once in a while to actually guide state actions and make sure that it follows the LWRP. The other benefit is that you're open for funding in the future. The local waterfront revitalization program funding provides 75% for projects that further the LWRP. So for instance, up here, could be something dealing with Little York Lake. I know there's invasive species issues. could put funding in to say buy a piece of equipment to help manage the invasive species, or do some other types of projects. Again, Cortland got funding to put in a hardtop boat launch site. I don't need for that this way. So that's a big benefit. So you get the funding and you can guide state actions. A couple of the downsides, actually the one, and I don't know if it's really a downside, is once it's adopted formally by the participating municipalities, you as the town will have to pass what's called a consistency law, and that formally adopts it. And what that says is for certain projects that get reviewed, and I believe when we did it originally, we called it a type 1 action under seeker. So bigger projects, not, I'm painting my house or I'm, doing something small. But bigger projects would have to be reviewed for consistency with the LWRP. We designed that so that the county planning office would be the reviewing entity. And the reality is most every project that would have to go to them for review for the LWRP would already have to go there for general municipal law review. You have to, if you're a certain action within so many feet of a state highway, so many feet of a municipal border, and there may be other things that trigger that, are going to have to go to the county planning for review anyways. So we specifically designed it that way so that you wouldn't have that extra layer of government. We didn't want someone to go, well, I got to go to county planning and now I've got to go to some other entity for this review with it. But that said, there will be the consistency review that will be required moving forward once it's adopted. So that's a really quick rundown. More than happy to answer questions. The only thing I want to remind you of as you kind of think about this is it's an all or nothing endeavor. So if 5 municipalities decide we want to be involved in this along the corridor, that's what we're here for, meeting with different municipalities to see if they want to participate or not. If we go through the process, if you say, yep, we want to do this, and you're involved and you're a participating municipality, and at the end you don't pass your consistency law and adopt that it means the LWRP does not take effect for any municipality at all. So, if you decide, so I want to think about it carefully, because, year and a half, 2 years, we'll be back here holding a public hearing and talking about a law. And if you decide at that point, yeah, we don't want to do this, we don't like the consistency law piece, we don't like whatever it is, that means Village of Homer, City of Cortland, maybe the Village of Marathon would not be able to access LWRP funding in the future. Because all participating municipalities have to adopt it in order for it to take effect. So that's really quick, brief rundown, because I've probably got a big agenda, didn't want to keep you going. So what we're really asking for tonight, and if you can't decide tonight, that's fine. You can think about it a little bit, but to kind of make a decision, do we want to participate in this or not? Is it beneficial for us to be involved in it? And hopefully what I handed out sent some information. If so, we are, or actually the city is asking that participating municipalities help participate in the match. There's a required match. It's going to be about $2,500 per municipality. It's kind of a piece to kind of participate in that. And then we'd also ask that you recommend someone to sit on the steering committee. This, even though the city is the lead in terms of getting the grant, they really don't have a desire to, be the lead and tell other municipalities what they should be doing. So they really want someone locally. It could be the supervisor, somebody on the board, if you have somebody on the planning board, that would sit on the committee and sort of speak for Preble and voice your concerns or issues and make sure that your viewpoints are in there and are acting as a voice for the community. So certainly want you to think about that as well. So questions?
What's the time frame on joining it? Or
Well, we want to move pretty quickly because we have about 18 months. And if you've seen the document, it's about that thick, the original. So there's a lot of work to do. We would like to have a kickoff meeting with the steering committee in the next few weeks. But if this is one of those things where you really need to think about it and make a decision at your next board meeting, we can do that. You could always tentatively put somebody in as a steering committee member, invite you to the kickoff meeting and think about it, participate, and then make a formal decision or formal resolution at your next meeting. We don't want you rushing. We want you to make sure that you feel comfortable that this is going to be something you want to be doing. But we can't wait around 6 months, I
Yeah.
guess.
Are the other towns already acknowledged?
Yeah, so far, the town of Homer, village of Homer, city of Cortland, town of Cortlandville are all saying, yes, we definitely want to be. Village of Marathon, I'm not sure when they're meeting, but they have a meeting and they're going to be discussing it, and the mayor certainly wants to be. Those are the main communities, along with you, in my opinion, that it makes sense to be involved. Because you've got waterfront, you've got Little York Lake, you've got some things going on. There's Dwyer Park, there's different issues. There's maybe a half mile of riverfront in Lapeer. There's really not a lot of benefit for Lapeer to be involved in this. Kind of the same with like Kyler and Truxton, so those communities, probably don't want to participate, and the benefit's not there for them. My feeling is it probably is for you, but if you don't feel it's right for you, that's fine as well. You're not here to twist arms. We just want to give you the opportunity to make sure that you fully understand what's involved and are comfortable with it. So you can decide one way or another.
2 questions. If there was an affirmative vote tonight, does that irrevocably commit the town with that vote moving forward? And then secondly, do you see the potential benefit for the town primarily with regard to that portion of the Little York Lake that's within the town?
Not necessarily. First of all, it's not revocable. I mean, it is revocable, if you don't want to. I guess the issue is if you get to the end of the planning process and then you decide you don't want to be involved, that then impacts the other municipalities. And it impacts how the plan is developed a little bit. But, if it's one of those things where if you decide tonight, yeah, we want to be involved, and then in a meeting or two, the supervisor's on the committee, and then he's like, yeah, I'm not buying this, can certainly kind of back out. That's fine. I think the other part of your question.
Yeah, where you see the primary potential benefit.
Right. The area isn't just within a distance of the riverfront. And one of the first things we do as part of this is set the boundaries. I believe last time it was kind of 81 to 281, that whole area within. So, this, I think, this building, for instance, would be within the LWRP area. And so pretty much anywhere in that area, you can undertake projects. So if there was a park in back of this building and, you wanted to do a parks project and do some work, in theory, you could apply for that. It doesn't have to be on the river. It's anywhere within the boundary line. And one of the first things we'll be doing is setting that boundary. Again, you need to have some reason. You can't be,
well, would a
on top of
town
a hill
need,
15 miles
would it
away.
be advantageous for the town if they had a couple of those sorts of things in mind? So, for
yep.
example, we do have a park that might fit in the area or whatever. I mean,
And we have an outlet from Tully Lake that goes into the river system that is growing. It's being with invasive species. It's being blocked off.
Right, and this goes right up to the border, right up to the county border.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on the exact boundary lines, that likely be all included. Is there part of Song Lake that's in Preble?
Yeah, all of Song Lake is in Preble.
All of Song Lake is? Okay, so that would
The
include all
boundary
of that
is
as well.
eroded there. Yeah.
So that would include all that area as well. So yeah, if there's invasive.
Half
I
of
can't
Tully
sit
Lake.
here and guarantee you, if you do this, you're going to get a grant to deal with invasive species.
Right. Yeah.
But it certainly leaves that possibility open to be dealing with those types of things.
Mhm.
And it's one of the few programs out there that can do some of that. And one of the things we do is we go through and we look at projects, we look at opportunities, and we identify goals and strategies. And could be, I would assume one of the projects would be, or goals would be, to deal with invasive species, in the waterways as appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's certainly something that would be looked at as part of the planning process. And we do have some environmental engineers as part of the planning team that certainly know a whole lot more about that type of stuff than I do. Mm-hmm. That'll be working with us on some of the environmental type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's also economic development. Looking at how do we leverage the waterfront as an economic development resource. That may or may not be an issue up here. It is in the city of Cortland, Village of Homer. They're very interested in leveraging that as a resource for development. So that's certainly something we'll be looking at as well.
Mm-hmm.
Rich, I want to ask, are there any specific development projects that this group has on the agenda right now that they're looking to pursue?
No, mostly because there's no group yet.
Okay.
You know,
Well,
it's-
there could be a
it's-
core group of people that have an agenda and
Right,
they want to
yeah.
build around that.
Right, no,
Yeah.
there really isn't.
Okay.
You know, the closest thing would be that there was a previous LWRP plan that was put in place. And that'll be, this is an update to that. Obviously, some of the individual projects and goals and all that stuff is certainly open to be changed. You know, there's nothing there that's written in stone. But there really isn't a steering committee or a core group. Really, this came from the Department of State coming to the city and saying, really would like this updated and reviewed and adopted. And the city's saying, well, we'll sponsor an application, but kind of like, you know, we don't have any planning staff, we're busy, we don't, we'll sponsor an application, but we don't want to, take the lead necessarily. So, the first thing that'll happen is there'll be a steering committee that'll be put together, somebody from every municipality plus other, probably somebody from, economic development or tourism, those types of constituencies would be invited to be in a steering committee, and then they really set the agenda in terms of projects and goals and those types of things.
Okay. And I have one more question. Do you see any disadvantages or risks to the town of Preble by joining onto this?
Not really.
Or can
Again,
you envision any kind of risk or disadvantage?
No, I mean, not that I can think of. The only real long-term requirement that gets imposed is different than a lot of planning things, is you do have to pass it. Well, you don't have to, but in order to adopt it, you have to pass this consistency law. And that, again, kind of puts in a law that says, certain projects, and the plan defines those, and I believe we define those as type 1 seeker projects, would have to be reviewed for consistency with the LWRP. So, if someone is doing some big project and it was gonna, I don't know, destroy the view shed or something like that, that could potentially be an impact. But, it keeps you open for grant funds too, so.
We
Rich,
have
would
the
that be, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Jim.
We have the $2,500 we have to put in also.
Yep, and we don't know how that payment would happen at this point,
Mhm.
and could be a little less. If we get more municipalities that want to participate, it just gets, the pie's the size, and then it gets divided up by, municipalities. But at this point, it looks like it'll be about 2,500, we think.
And well, what is that money used for?
That's the required match for the grant.
Okay.
So the grant was, and I don't have the exact dollar figures, the grant was about, 50,000, and there was about a $15,000 match. Some of that's coming from the city, obviously a bigger share, and some other places. And then, the other municipalities kind of participating in that.
On that consistency law, Rich,
And
are
I
you
can give you
saying,
a copy of that, a draft.
yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that, because are you saying that it would only apply to projects that require a phase one?
That we would require, there'd
I
be a
not
type 1
phase one, a
seeker
type one,
project.
which is a large project. So-
Correct.
So that wouldn't apply to, other than type one.
Right. And as part of this, we draft that consistency law.
Okay.
And so when we worked on it last time, I know we really made efforts to make it as easy and as least onerous as possible. So we figured there aren't many. I believe it was type 1 and not type 1 and unlisted, but I could be wrong there. But we tried to make it so that the number of projects that would have to go for review that wouldn't be going to county planning for review anyways would be very small.
Okay. And you would be drafting that law, so it wouldn't be on, you'd draft the same law for every municipality
It's
involved.
the same law for every municipality. The only other thing, and when we did it the last time, I don't believe there was anything that impacted Preble. But one of the things that we do as part of this is we review everybody's zoning. And we look, are there vast inconsistencies in zoning laws? And, the plan can recommend, well, everyone has a 45-foot building height, but, Preble's is 50. And so we might recommend reducing that to 45. But, that said, there weren't very many changes we identified when we did it the first time. Building height's the only thing that jumps in mind, and I didn't even think that was an issue on your end. So, this isn't something that's going to require you to, rewrite any zoning or land use or site plan reviews you have. But we do need to look at that to see, because basically want to see that development activities in the corridor are a little more consistent. That every municipality doesn't have vastly different directions they're going and what's allowed and not and that type of stuff. But again, the vast majority really, other than you get in the village and the city, is rural farmland. So
So the number of projects can't be more than what the $50,000 grant would be? Would these municipalities
the-
agree upon what projects there would
Well,
be?
the project can be unlimited. I mean, we can come up with any kind of products we want and think is appropriate as we do this. The money basically is to pay the planning team to put all of this together. And Department of State, if you've ever worked with them, are particular in how they do this. They have, step one, hold a meeting. Step two, do minutes for the meeting. Step three, send us the minutes, that type of thing. So, it's very regimented as how they move forward on it. But, part of that is identifying, potential products you might be having. But, we're not limited, we're not doing, architectural drawings for new park pavilions or those sorts of things. It's more from a conceptual standpoint that would go into the plan.
Okay, now this consistency law has not been written yet, right?
We have the one that was written for the last one.
Okay,
So we can share that. Again, this is an update, so I can certainly share that with Don.
because if we need to agree with the consistency law, then we need to read it first before we can make a
Right,
decision as a board.
But that can also be changed as we go through this process. I mean, that's part of the process is coming up with, rules and guidelines that people all agree on, which is why we want someone from Preble involved. So you can say, no, we got a problem with this. Want to make sure we're working together on that. But yeah, we can certainly get a copy and you can take a look at it. What we drafted
So
before.
we can't give
It's
you.
based on a template from the
Yeah,
state.
we can't give you an answer tonight on this, but we can certainly review the consistency law and we can read through what you gave us, this handout, and ask, talk about it among the board, and probably by next meeting, we can give you an answer on it.
And you've got our contact information.
Mhm.
So, if anybody in the board, anybody in the public's got questions, more than happy to answer them, talk to you about them. Set up a meeting one-on-one, discuss things. One of the things we'll be doing when we schedule what we're calling a kickoff meeting, we'll start with a steering committee, but at that same meeting, we are going to be inviting any board members, any municipal heads, that kind of stuff. And we'll make sure when we do that our rep from Department of State's there, because, they're a good resource to ask a lot of questions too. They certainly know the program better than we do. So they can answer questions as well. So,
Okay.
if we happen to schedule that before your next meeting, we'll make sure you're invited anyways. If we go ahead and do that, it's not meeting, we're not letting you in.
Okay. Thanks for coming, Rich.
No problem.
Yeah.
Good to be here. I've
Thank
been
you.
up here in a while. So and thank you for putting me right on first. That's great. I won't say who. I sat through a 2-hour meeting a few weeks ago.
Okay, Jane?
A dog that was picked up in September 2019 was finally adopted and 90 miles traveled through the town. Justice report, $15,398 in fees collected in October.
Thanks, Jane. Jeff, Highway?
Yes, I just got a copy of the report. Tomorrow, after a little bit of snow and a lot of calls and like that, I got state DOT bringing an excavator up tomorrow to take care of the beaver dams that we've been talking about for just a month now. The other thing is that just this morning, Cornell Local Roads, they released a COVID-19 winter maintenance plan. And if you told me this a couple months ago, I would have said, what's going on? But then, of course, Cortland DOT residency and Portland County had some cases and like that. So it's it's 9 pages, and I went through it this morning. And I think locally, with our neighbors, I should say, it's something we need to at least discuss and have a plan. If a small department like ours got hit, they pretty much shut us down, but the weather's not going to care. So we need to kind of think through that a little bit. But also, according to my last email, the Belfry is supposed to be next week, taking that down. And they're looking for 2 good days, but I don't know how many you're going to get after Wednesday, but we'll see. And the the town and county hazard mitigation plan. The final paperwork's been submitted. I just got an email from Samu this afternoon. He's got the final draft, and I'm gonna go through that. If anybody wants to look at it, let me know. But I'm just gonna go through that page by page, and if not, it's gonna get submitted, with any updates. But, so hopefully we can put that to bed for 5 years. So, any questions, Rand? Okay, thanks.
I see that you did level some of the
Yeah,
area out back.
yeah, we had the wheeled excavator, which was kind of the machine I wanted to use to do that.
Mhm,
Worked pretty good. We're gonna break it off and get some grass seed down.
mhm.
But, yeah, they took, 1.5 10-wheeler loads of material out of there, so,
Thanks, Jeff.
yes.
Okay, recreation, Hank, you have anything?
No, I don't. Not
Okay.
yet.
Okay,
Looks like we should have played this week.
yeah, this week was.
Geez, all
was
the
the
nice
week.
weather. God.
County legislature? Kevin, you're up.
Yep, thank you. So you had asked, about the sales tax projections. So Friday, the county went to the comptroller. It looked like we're only 3% down from last year. So our county budget, they went for 10% reduction is what our projections were for the budget, and we're now gonna just put it to 7 for there. So internet sales really helped a lot. And so, you got the workers' comp bill?
I don't have it with me right now, but
Okay. 'Cause,
yeah, we're aware of workers' comp,
all right, yeah, so that's it.
it is what it is,
Any questions or anything?
Any questions?
Yeah, sorry I wasn't here last month, but the mother-in-law was not doing good.
Yeah. Well, I guess the only feedback I got was about sales tax, and you answered that we must have had a really strong rebound after the spring, and also internet sales, like you say, helped a lot
Yeah,
to be only down 3% in sales tax.
I think one of the things that extra $600 a week, everyone was buying and stuff. So this last quarter, they're projecting that exactly what if not more. So anything of that 3% that you might get hit, you might have it in 2020. So maybe they'll offset. I don't know. So I watched your meeting from October. So I watched that and stuff. So I just wanted to, thank you for doing the solar for the pilot. But to make it clear was that with the IDA, right in our chambers when we had the meeting, that proposal, that resolution was from Gary Van Gorder. That was his proposal. And he had stated right there with all the municipalities that were there is that I'm making this agreement with you. You guys put this through your board, it gets signed, you send a copy of that to his office, and he will place that in a file, Town of Preble. And then if anyone comes in, if the project is proposed in the Town of Preble, then Gary Van Gorder would pull that out and say, this is what you have to do for that. So really the agreement, the county's happy to get everybody in one pile, because everybody's been saying that if you put it up to 7,000 per megawatt, no one's going to come to develop, and it just hasn't been true. once we started doing that, they actually have. I mean, if you go to South Portland, take a look at that and stuff. So what's gonna happen is pretty soon, Tompkins County, all the land that they have is gonna be bought up, used for solar. They're gonna come here, and their 7,000 wasn't bad. Tompkins County, I think they went as high as 9,000 per megawatt. So if you really look at it that way, the 90 megawatt solar farm at 7,000, I mean, that's $630,000 to the local municipality, the county, and school district. So why not? I mean, it's, to me, I just say it's good business, for that. So that was his agreement. So if you put it at 7,000, that's what he's gonna do. Lapeer negotiated down to 2,500. Willett, same thing. What helped Willett was the host agreement. So every year, Willett gets $13,000 a year. The town does for being for having that host agreement. That's where you kind of can make the county money, because you feel that they're on your roads, and I don't know if here fire department, I don't know what catches fire on a solar farm and stuff. But, there's always infrastructure that the town has to deal with. So that's why we were looking at bringing it up for that. So
We just thought that it was good for all the towns to be pulling the cart in the same direction.
it definitely, absolutely is, because we've seen, especially Lapeer, where they regret it for going that low now that they know that everybody's uniform. And for Gary Van Gorder, for the IDA, to me, that was a big statement that he made by saying, I'm not going to negotiate down any farther. It's going to be 7,000 per megawatt, or you're not going to do it. He didn't want to do that because he just didn't want to be a bad person, in the IDA, because that wasn't what their goal was when they contracted with the county. Anybody else have any? Okay.
No other news from the county besides that, pretty much.
You're on TV, so no.
Okay.
Nope, not at all. Okay.
Okay, Kevin, thanks for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Jane?
Zoning and code.
And McNerney's up there in Tully, they got quite a
79 miles.
layout there.
travel,
Oh my God.
14 building
On the north side, they must have went 300-400 feet that road.
1 fire.
And it was in there and bang, wired it up.
6 complaint follow-ups
Gone.
and 23 telephone
A lot of
inquiries.
panels.
Planning board meeting is November 18th. ZBA meeting December 3rd.
Thanks, Jane. Town historian? Jay?
I gave you a copy of the report, Jeff. I'm just
Yes.
gonna hit on a few of the
Okay.
highlights here, if that's okay. In 2019, they started their Facebook page. We've seen an increase over the last year, about 42%, went from 929 to 1,618 friends on the Facebook page. Donations, we had quite a bit as far as, pictures and newspapers and clippings. We did receive a donation of a World War II Navy cap from one of our veterans. That's still safe in the vault there. And then the last one I'm going to hit on is I was appointed to the Cortland County Historical Society Board of Trustees this year. It's a 2-year term. We discuss everything to do with the Historical Society down there in Cortland. So those are the highlights.
Congratulations with your appointment.
Oh, thank you. So anybody else have any questions? Are you good? Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Yep.
Jane?
We collected $563, dispersed $549 to the town of Preble, and 14 to New York State Aid and Markets.
Thanks, Jane. We'll start with unfinished business. Jane, I think you mean solar law, right? Opt out of solar law?
Oh, is that what you said?
Yeah.
I-
So I just want to ask Don to explain to us, we've heard this before, but it's good to hear this again, the explanation of what it means to opt out of this law. Don?
Yes, there's a state law in the books that says any solar development is exempt from being assessed for real property and taxed for real property tax purposes. So if someone put a project in and it was worth $200,000, under state law at present, we could not tax that increase in value of that property due to that solar development. If we pass a local law that says, and you have a couple options, you can pass a local law that opts out of that state exemption. So that if that development happened and the value went up by 200,000 or 300,000, our assessor could assess that improved or increased value, and that increase in value would be subject to real property tax, just like any other increase in value to any property in the town. So that's a complete opt-out of the exemption. That's one option. The second option is you can opt out to allow for a pilot, so that instead of just broad brush, no exemptions whatsoever, no discretion, no ability to modify, so they're going to be taxed like anyone else based upon the increase in value, you can authorize, or you can opt out and say, look, we will authorize entering into a pilot agreement, a payment in lieu of tax agreement. So that would allow the town to tax based upon the increase in value, but it would not require, complete across the board tax with no discretion. And with a pilot, you can actually impose a tax up to what would be the normal tax level anyway. Usually there's a phase in. So in year 1, there's 10%. In year 10, then you get to 100%.
And you can have a time limit there because of that, where the other tax, if you allowed it to tax the land, it was on there forever.
Right. So the pilot adds some flexibility, ability to be flexible. We've had towns that have enacted the complete opt-out, and we've had towns that have enacted the pilot.
So it's either or, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We have to choose which one. If we want to opt out, we have to choose which version of opt out we want to do.
Yeah, and it's like any law. I mean, you can amend it at some later date if you want it, if you choose one, and because we don't have any experience. You can't. It's like, okay, what's this really going to mean?
Now, let me ask this: would opting out, as the illustration that you gave us, would that make us less competitive as a town for a solar project to come in?
I think if you did the complete opt-out, it might. And, if a town wanted to discourage that kind of development, then maybe that's what they would pass. I think I got to believe it would.
Right. Anybody have any questions about opting out of the exemption?
I would rather see the pilot program being put in. We have more flexibility, and we can put the tax on there where we want, and it's not up to the assessor to assess the landowner, because they have a warranty on whatever goes on there, 20 years, and they degrade so much % a year. So it doesn't seem fair to me to do it that way, but the pilot seems to be a lot more flexible for the town, and we can have a big tax for the first 10 years. And
And even with the pilot, we can kind of design that whatever way we wish, right?
Seems like there's
As far
flexibility.
as the scale.
Right,
the
gives you some
graduating scale,
flexibility.
There's flexibility in that.
Mhm.
Dave, what do you think?
It sounds like the pilot fits us better.
And it seems like a pilot with flexibility to design that the way we want, it wouldn't necessarily make us less competitive in the marketplace if we had a project that we wanted to do.
That's right.
That one
And
can
it might
tell.
even bring, some in.
With
Yeah, Kevin?
Yeah, because this came up a lot, and especially with Solon. Solon had that same thing. And even if you opted out and you gave more value to the land, the landowner usually, I mean, we've seen a couple of the contracts that they have signed, and a lot of those talks about the developing crew that comes in, that they actually pay for the increase. So it's part of the contract, and they factor that into their payments to the landowner. So a lot of it is in the contract.
Okay. Don, do we have any time limit on doing this?
Well, you need to pass a local law, so as with any local law, we would need to have a public hearing, and I think we need to refer it to county planning, and they're gonna kick it back, but that's the process. Technically, you're supposed to have a draft of the law on your desk when you make those motions. I mean, I've got, examples here. We just talked about it this morning, so I don't have a, quote unquote, local law 1 or local law 2 for Preble,
Well,
but you,
maybe we can make a draft for next month.
sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And you can give us a draft and then we can vote on it then.
Yeah. It's either you could pass a resolution, I guess, tonight to have a public hearing. If you wanted to enact it next month, we'd need to have the resolution to have a public hearing. We'd have to pass that tonight for the public hearing at the December meeting, and also to refer it to county planning.
Does it have to be passed this year? Is that?
No, the only drawback is I think technically if someone, in effect, put a spade in the ground, if someone started in a concrete way a solar project, our law might not be, if we didn't enact the law till after they started that,
Mhm.
I think they would, they might come in before the effective date of our law. So they might be exempt.
Right.
But
Um,
I don't know if you know of any
Is
impending.
there a downside to not doing the voting on the pilot program tonight? I mean,
Well, I mean, technically, you don't have the draft law in front of you.
Right.
So if you don't know of any projects,
Yeah, I don't know of any projects that are going on right now. I don't think there are any that are being initiated. And I would like to have Mike here too,
Yeah.
if we're gonna make a resolution about this.
Yeah.
But, Don, if you could draft up
we'll do.
a local law
Yes.
that includes the pilot.
Yep.
Then we can look at it, Mike can look at it, and then we can make a resolution.
I'll get them to you before the next meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
that would be good.
I'll get them to you in a week or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do.
Okay, moving on, new business. We need to adopt the 2021 budget, and there are a few questions that the board has, and some members of the board have about this. And so we're going to discuss this as a personnel issue in our executive session later in the meeting.
And Jim, on that, I think we're supposed to adopt the budget by November 20.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
have to adopt.
That's the date.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we can still go into executive session and discuss this, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, but we'll be adopting it after we get out of executive session. Next item, Greater Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance. We need resolution to sign on for another year. Jeff, you're the one that is involved with this. You benefit from it. None of the board members do. Can you just give us a summary on how that's working for you? What do you like the program?
It's been working well. The biggest thing you see in this room is the single digit increases versus a lot of double digit with a lot of the insurance programs.
Mhm.
And it is administered through their consortium, but it's also Blue Cross Blue Shield, and but not for the prescription. It's ProAct does the, but I haven't heard any complaints from the guys, and
Mhm.
knock on wood, I haven't been needing it. So
It is a much less expensive program for the town to participate in. It does create a little bit more work for myself going to those meetings and keeping up with all their emails and everything, but I'm willing to do that because the cost is so much less. And so if you're happy with it, then we'll sign up for another year.
yeah, from my end, I think it's a good program.
Okay. So we need a resolution to sign on for another year of the Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance.
Right, and technically too, Jim, you're approving their 2020 and 2021 amendments to their agreement for that consortium. And it just looks like, I took a look at that, Jim, and it's just, you're really kind of ratifying what their board of directors have done.
Mm-hmm.
They've changed a couple things there. They've expanded the area of potential municipal corporations that could be members. And generally speaking, the more you have, the more risk you can spread out. I would think that would be a good thing. So
Right. Originally, when this organization started, that they wanted to use Tompkins County and adjoining counties around Tompkins County, but they've sort of saturated that market in order to grow more. They were talking about expanding out into other counties. So I think that's where this wording comes in. It doesn't affect our insurance really. Actually, it could only help it because it gives us more leverage and buying power. So we need, and this is for the benefit of Jeff's crew, for the three guys. We need a resolution to accept the amendments and to sign on for another year of the Greater Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance Consortium. Somebody could just say, I move. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. So I'll be signing this and sending it in. Okay, I'm working with Don Fisher on the newsletter. Don has some ideas about what he wants to do. He wants it to be more electronic, to be sent out by email, but there is a need for printed copies also to go to people's homes. So I have to get with him to find out exactly what he has in the works, but I do have some articles that I have submitted, and Jeff has submitted, and various people have submitted. The usual people have submitted their articles. I just need to, I want to open this up that any board members, if you have an area of expertise or interest that would like to create an article and put it into the newsletter, more than welcome to do so. Or anybody in the community who would like to submit something, more than welcome. We received from Northeast Transformers $1,771.89, and from USPS $741.92. Now I'd like to open up the meeting to public comments or questions. Okay. Anybody has a question or comment? At this time, we'd like to go into executive session. Let's talk about two items, and then we'll come back and we will adopt the budget and we will pay the bills.
Pay some for me too, will you?
Huh?
Pay some for me, will you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
So what's $70,000?
now, Don, can the board invite Jeff to be in on this executive session?
No, every year.
Is that something we can
it's
do?
a good question.
Because he would be a great benefit to,
I think you can.
yeah, okay.
You
Jeff,
just have to make them, promise not to reveal.
all right. Okay, Jeff, you're invited. Okay, so we've got two items that we want to discuss.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah. Jim?
good point. We can't really televise the,
Okay.
yeah, for sure.
I could end it, but I guess right there. Right?
Yeah.